Hello, filmmakers, attendees, sponsors, and social media followers. Welcome to the February episode of Filmmaker in Focus from the Maine Outdoor Film Festival. The Maine Outdoor Film Festival is a 10-day international festival of adventure, conservation, and the arts held every summer in Portland, Maine. After the Portland event, the MOFF Selects Tour brings MOFF's best outdoor adventure short films to venues all over the Northeast in the late summer and fall. So we'll see you in Portland on July 29 to August 8, 2021, or at a theater or outdoor venue in your neck of the woods shortly thereafter. My name is Nick Callanan, and I'm the director of the Maine Outdoor Film Festival. In this episode of Filmmaker in Focus, we'll check out the short film For Beer's Sake by Benjamin Keller, and afterwards we'll have a conversation with Ben about his film. But first, a few quick updates on MOFF 2021. MOFF is stoked to announce that we are launching a new virtual viewing platform this year. We've done a bunch of research into a bunch of different platforms, and we're very excited about the one we're landing on. In 2021, the MOFF virtual experience will allow viewers to enjoy MOFF films on their Apple TV, Roku, or Android TV apps. No more long emails with confusing instructions with multiple sites. And filmmakers will be pleased to hear that the digital rights management capabilities of our new platform are super tight. The first screening of our new platform launches on March 8th, when MOFF presents the Women's Adventure Film Tour, an Australian-based collection of international films highlighting real stories of women from a variety of cultures and sports from around the world. Head to MaineOutdoorFilmFestival.com on or before March 8th, which is International Women's Day, to get your tickets. Now, a quick rundown of some other important dates for MOFF 2021. On March 20th, the festival passes will go on sale. On April 22nd, it's the Earth Day screening with Maine Audubon. That's our 8th annual. On May 1st, individual tickets will go on sale. June 1st is the deadline for submissions for filmmakers. And on June 24th, our official accepted films and schedule will be announced. And of course, July 29th to August 8th is MOFF 2021 Portland. The state of Maine is doing a good job beating down this recent surge of the pandemic. Keep up the good work, guys. We can't wait to see many of you in person, with crowd limits, social distancing, and face masks most likely, but still in person this summer. Now, MOFF is proud to present For Beer's Sake, a short film by Ben Keller. Stay tuned for an interview with Mr. Keller after the short film. Enjoy!
What's the most important ingredient in beer?
It's gotta be the water.
The water.
It's the water.
Water makes up over 90% of a beer. It'll impact all of your flavors, from whether they're coming from hops or malts or your yeast. They're all interacting with that water.
Malt, hops get a lot of the limelight. You know, people focus on them a lot. It's kind of a romantic part. But really, all that is for nothing if you don't have good quality water.
It's the common denominator among all the breweries in this area that use it, which is kind of cool because we all have such different styles and finished products, and although we might buy malt from the two-row from the same company, we definitely all have the same water. We all start with the same stuff.
The simple answer is our water comes from Sebago Lake, right? And it's it's something a lot of people are aware of, but it's also good to note that the water really comes from the watershed, and the watershed extends much further than the lake itself. And, out of somewhere around 50 miles of area that really feeds into Sebago Lake, and that's really what's important, to protect that area, because that's where it all starts.
When water falls from the sky, it's moving really, really quickly. And a watershed like this, especially a forested watershed, slows down that water as it falls from the sky. And when water's moving slowly through the earth, through this natural filter, it keeps extra sediment from getting into the surface water. It helps keep phosphorus and nitrogen in the soil as opposed to having it wash quickly away and into our surface water. And a watershed is really, it's quite simple. There's 10 major watersheds in the state of Maine, and it just is delineated by when that drop of water falls, where does it go? And the Sebago Lake watershed is named the Sebago Lake watershed because whenever water falls from the sky within the watershed, wherever it is, it ultimately flows right into Sebago Lake. I mean, your water that you're using for your business is some of the highest quality, most pure water in North America. And the reason why is because of these trees and this watershed. We do take it for granted here. We have this incredible abundance of surface water. We don't have to think about it when we turn on the tap. It just comes out, there it is. We know it's safe to drink. We know it tastes good. And the reality is that might not always be the case. Right now the watershed is about 85% forested. And we know that around 75%, so if the forest cover in the watershed decreases by another 10%, that's where we'll start seeing effects on the water quality. So yes, we have this incredible forested watershed, but it's at risk. We're trying to protect a healthy watershed as opposed to fixing a watershed that has problems. And as you can imagine, it just costs a lot more money to fix a problem than it is to protect an already great resource.
The understanding is that we're just trying to do as much forward thinking to mitigate the risk that we damage this incredible thing that we have here. Yeah.
And what's at stake is if we're not diligent and if we're not doing this work, whether it's 10 years from now or 50 years from now, we're gonna lose the quality of this resource. So there is urgency.
And some of us use it unadulterated the way it is, and some of us it's a beautiful blank canvas to create. It's easy to add the things in that we want in there in the right concentrations for best results.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Absolutely. And the less the water needs to be treated and filtered, both by us at our breweries and also by the water district in their treatment plant, the better that water is for making beer, hands down. Yeah. The more it's just pure from the source.
We test their water as well, sensory-wise and chemically, but they're supposed to test that water every time they mash in a new batch. And one of the challenges we have, they're like, why? It's always great. So it's you constantly have to remind them it's just an added quality check.
Yeah.
But it's once again so consistent and so good, such good quality every time that the brewers often are like, why are we even checking it?
Not luck. Nope. Well, it is luck. It's both. So Sebago Lake is very big and very deep. So it's about 30,000 acres. At its deepest point, it's over 300 feet deep. So it has enormous capacity. And the watershed, also the area of land that drains to the lake, is also very big. So that's about 280,000 acres, and it's mostly forest. It's not developed area. The EPA collects data from lakes nationwide, and it shows that Maine is one of the top 5 states that has clean lakes in the country. So Maine has some of the cleanest lakes nationwide, and among those lakes, Sebago Lake is one of the cleanest. Nationally, surface water sources are required to filter as part of their treatment process, but because Sebago Lake is so clean, we aren't required to do that. So that's a designation that about 50 water supplies have out of approximately 13,000 surface water supplies nationally, so it's pretty rare. So if we did have to install filtration, then that would involve adding more chemicals, and it would also take a lot more energy.
Right. So we really need to have a strategy.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yep.
What is the biggest threat to the water source right now?
So the biggest threat is phosphorus. Phosphorus comes from soil. Soil gets disturbed during building. And it also gets deposited into the lake via runoff. So impervious surfaces create runoff, dislodge soil into the lake. So that just that slow process over time can make your lake have too much nutrients, and then you get algae growth. So it's a long-term development trend in the upper watershed.
Yeah, we're in a really good spot right now, and we should preserve that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's all about protecting what we have. Once water quality declines, then it's almost impossible to get back to where you started. So it just makes sense to do what we can now to protect what we have. But, we don't want to be alarmist, but we also want to convey
Bring attention
that we
to
have
it.
to start now.
Yeah.
Because it's a process. It's a long
Takes time.
process.
If there's something in the water that's got to be removed, I think that's where the prohibitive cost for processing comes. And that would ultimately have to be reflected, in the price that we have to pay, if it could pass out to the consumer. Obviously, it's critical.
We wouldn't be able to do anything. There's no alternative. We can't go out and buy water from Hannaford's and pull in spring water bottles and dump them in the hot liquor tank.
And if the water that we got had more treatment done to it, more chemicals done to it, we would have to then pay to remove those. So it would have a huge impact on us.
Absolutely.
We're very fortunate to have a pristine water source, one of the best water sources in the country, which means we have fewer challenges than many water treatment plants. Our water changes very little throughout the year. There are places across the country that pull water from very active, very large rivers, and that changes by the hour. Sebago Lake is it takes out probably 30%, 40% of the work a water treatment plant would have to do to treat water. Really the forest around the lake, the pristine nature of the land, the protected source we have is critical for keeping the cost down for our ratepayers, keeping the quality up for our consumers.
And our brewers.
And our brewers.
Of course. So once the water reaches your facility, what do you then have to do to it to make it ready for drinking?
The most important thing is what we don't have to do to it. We don't have to filter it. We have a filtration waiver, which is administered by the state. We draw the water from the lake, it's cold, and then we bring it up into the plant. We add the ozone, and then we follow that with the ultraviolet light.
If a filtration process was to be required, would there be chemical additions required through that process?
Yes, there are filtration chemicals that needed to be added and then removed into it, and you end up with a sludge that needs to be disposed of.
A brewshed is essentially a watershed. So across the state, there's 10 major watersheds, and we have breweries in all of those watersheds. A lot of them are focused here in the Sebago Lake watershed, because that's where we have some of the cleanest water and the most people. Our goal here is to preserve and protect all of our brewsheds. We have some of the cleanest water in the country here in the state of Maine, and that leads to some of the greatest beer.
And that's why the Brewshed Alliance is so important, right? I mean, without a group like ours coming together to really work to protect this amazing resource that we have, it would be very difficult for us to continue to be fed some of the best beer in America, which would have an obvious impact on our industry, but also an impact on our communities. In the Sebago watershed, as it's true across all the other watersheds in Maine, in order to keep the opportunity to use that blank canvas, we have to protect the resource.
The way the watershed works and the time it takes for water to move through the watershed into the outlet of Lake Sebago and into the water system is a lot of time.
Yep.
And if an issue happens way upstream and you don't discover it till late stream, we got a major problem on our hands. It's not something you can quickly turn around and fix.
We have to protect the tiny little streams and wetlands that are where that water is draining from the mountains every spring and during heavy rainstorms, and the way that it's recharging the aquifers that refill Sebago Lake every year. And fortunately, we have a really strong water supply. But we got to make sure that it is clean in all those upland areas, all of those areas throughout the brewshed.
It's not by accident,
right?
Like that watershed is what creates that. It's that natural filtration process and those protected lands that creates that, natural, very pure water. And there's only a handful of places in the country that have a water source like that. And I think that's a great way to kind of define why it's so important to protect those outerlying areas within the watershed and preserve that.
Absolutely, the beer in Maine is so good because we have such good water. There's no question that we are blessed with some of the best water in the world, and that is why we have a cluster of breweries around the Portland Water District, frankly, and around the Sebago Lake watershed.
We all need that water, and we're all part of the Maine community, so it does go beyond beer. And we all want safe, clean drinking water, and I sure hope moving forward it's going to stay that way.
That was awesome. That was the best Maine film in this year's Maine Outdoor Film Festival. In last year's Maine Outdoor Film Festival, it is 2021. And we're so happy and proud to be able to have a conversation right now with Benjamin Keller, who is the director and filmmaker of For Beer's Sake. And Ben, thanks for having us here in your office, if you will.
My pleasure. Thank you for attending.
Your film is one of the most talked about films from the 2020 festival. I think it's a combination between the content matter, the characters, articulate approach to conservation, and also beer. How did you come about deciding on this film and pursuing this project?
Well, conservation is a huge passion of mine, and finding out through various different businesses and people I know that are involved in the beer world that the Sebago Lake watershed is one of a very select few watersheds in the country that don't have to be filtered, that get a special waiver. It was sort of a point of pride a little bit, and I sort of wanted to find out more about it. So through that business lens, I started to investigate further, and then came across these two groups, three groups actually: Sebago Clean Waters, the Brewshed Alliance, and the the Natural Resources Council of Maine, and their work towards preserving that, and how important it is to those companies that use that resource very directly. I'm not talking about like boating or leisure time activities, but is essential to their product that the resource stay clean. And so talking with them and finding out more from them about how important it is to them as a business to protect it, as well as people like me who just love it because it's nature and it's important. And so it just sort of drove the whole process. One gear clicked in after another, and then I found myself spending hours up on the Crooked filming this thing, deep in the woods, knee deep in water, filming mushrooms for hours on end. It's fabulous.
How many days in the field were you? How long was the overall production time horizon for your film?
Well, it took a while actually, because we had a particularly weirdly dry summer that year. So trying to get shots of the various landscapes in the rain was a neat trick. In fact, a few of the shots ended up being early winter. I started shooting the natural aspects in the field probably late June, and then the last shot I took was probably late September, early October, after the leaves had fallen. I think there might have even been some ice in the water. In terms of the stuff with people, that was a little bit more difficult because I reached out to a number of the different concerned parties, breweries, and they, you know, are crazy busy. So trying to nail them down and saying, okay, I need 3 of you to go on a boat ride on Sebago on Wednesday at 4 for at least 2 hours. Then we're going to tour the Portland Water District plant. Can you spare the time? And trying to find 3 of them that actually could do it at that time, forget it. And then when they all sit down in the beginning and they have that big discussion at the bar, the 5 of them, that was like herding cats, really. But once we got it set, those were relatively short segments. I spent a day on the water. I spent 6 hours probably at the bar. And then it was just a matter of editing. But the rest of it, as with all wildlife and conservation shooting, you don't know what you're going to get until you get there. And you don't know what the light is going to look like. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. And so I just went, except for the times when I knew it was going to be raining because I knew I needed rain shots. And so I would just go, and then I would say it was in the field, June through September exercise, and then the edit, you know, edit took as long as the edit took. I was back and forth, and I had some concerned parties. I didn't want to step over any lines with the Sebago Clean Waters people or with the Portland Water District, or in any way hurt their efforts to try and raise funds, because they are actively trying to purchase land around the watershed to protect it. And I didn't want to discourage that through the film, even though as an environmentalist, as an environmental filmmaker, I sort of tend toward the radical. I'm sort of more Sea Shepherd than I am, you know, Greenpeace, if that makes any sense, you know. I'm out there, I'd rather be out there, like, I don't know, throwing sliced cheese at people to make sure that they are paying attention versus, you know, sitting in a room someplace saying, well, we don't want to discourage development. I mean, I know we don't, but I mean, it's just, again, the tug of war. Where are you on the spectrum? I want action. I want it now, and that's sort of how I try to approach it as a filmmaker. But I have to also be very sensitive because there are parties involved in this, so I had to reel it in a little bit, and that took some time. You know, I'd send them a draft. They'd send me back some comments. I'd send them another draft. I tried to leave some of the direness in it without it feeling like we're all gonna die, if that makes any sense.
Well, you want to get some motivation to action there. Did you think when you were starting out as a filmmaker that there would be this balancing act as part of your work?
Yeah, well, the first film I made that had like a real sort of political commentary in a small scale was I did an access piece for a local beach here, and the town was trying to, or the group of people that lived at the beach was trying to restrict the access to the rest of the townspeople and to the public in general. And I wrote a piece that was scathing. And I was told by a third party that wasn't involved in any way, shape, or form on either side that I needed to tone it down if I wanted to touch base with people. So I did. I scaled it back, but I still made a piece that was like that was sort of from a point of view of a resident, and I still got a lot of blowback about it, a lot. So I think you really have to be ready if you're gonna make a stand in film, because it's indelible. Once it's out there, and that's it. So if you're gonna make a stand, you have to be ready to move forward knowing that that is your stand. And currently, I would still make that film in a heartbeat because, you know, it's a different issue, but the access laws around shore access in Maine and Massachusetts go back to 1788 or something ridiculous like that. It's stupid, right? And so I would certainly make that film, but however, this is a film where we're talking about the pushes and pulls of industry and development and the natural world, and how do we make it all work together? And right now, it is. So there's no real need to be like poking that bear. There might be at some point, but right now we're on a good track. And making this film I think, was a way of bringing it, to the forefront while we can. A guy in the film says it's a lot easier to protect a great resource than it is to fix one that's broken. So we're in the protect mode right now, and that's sort of like, okay, rah rah, let's keep it there.
What are some environmental films that you look at as inspirational? Maybe they were early in your career, or something you've seen recently.
Well, of course, there's The Cove, and there's Damnation, and those are all interesting films, but they're super, super focused, right? And as a filmmaker, I'm actually, and you can cut this too if you want, but I'm starting to feel as a documentary filmmaker that the old rote talking head, pretty picture thing is dead to me. I'm starting to really feel that is like just a lousy way to try and communicate with people and trying to draw them into the area that you're trying to protect and trying to bring awareness to, right? So like Blackfish, right? Great film, talking head, pretty picture, talking head, pretty picture, talking head, somebody dies. And so that's sort of the way it goes. And you can watch the travesty and you can watch the horror unfold on film, and you could say, boy, we've got to do something about that. But I'm trying to get to a place in my filmmaking where I can create an image that's here. This is all you get, this frame, right? But whatever the image is it pulls you in, and it brings you to a place that you can imagine, that you can see in your mind's eye, that goes far beyond that frame. And once you're there, then you start to realize that is a place that is beautiful, and that is a place that you want to protect and be a steward of, so that you can come back to it and other people can come back to it again and again and again. And that is like a super challenge to do that, because you're constrained to this, right? So like there are a ton of really great films out there, but one of the things that's really amazing to me, I just named those 3 conservation films, but those are all also like, we're killing something here, you help us, right? But when I see like some of those BBC films on the TV, like the Blue Planet 2, and like some of the imagery on that, more than the storytelling, because it's just telling you a story about a cool snake, right? But the fact is that they give you this, but you're there. You feel like you're walking through that world, and I want to emulate that. I want to get that, and I want to go there with a conservation and environmental message.
Thank you. That was great. I really appreciate you sharing that perspective.
I just want to add to this that this festival is like one of my favorite festivals, period, but it's also one of my favorite summertime main things to do. I look forward to it every year. It's just fantastic to sit out under the stars and watch some really creative people make some really interesting and evocative films. So kudos.
Well, thank you, Ben. It would not happen without you. If we did not have incredible films to show, there would literally be nobody there sitting under the stars. So thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words. That's very generous of you to say that. I appreciate it.
Well, they're all 100% true. Absolutely. Love it.
We all appreciate it, everybody on the team. So, well, hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was cool. It's going to be cool to see us kind of appear in the same room, even though we're doing this virtually. And keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. You too.
Thanks, Ben. We will. And thank you, friendly viewer. You keep up the good work also. We hope you enjoyed this episode of MOFF Filmmaker in Focus. Stay tuned to our Vimeo and Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn for more content and updates. And don't forget, a portion of MOFF proceeds go to Teens to Trails, a Brunswick-based nonprofit that works to connect high school students to life-changing outdoor experiences. Teens to Trails supports high school outing clubs and other efforts that lead students into the great outdoors. Find out more at teenstotrails.org. Thank you, folks. We'll see you out there.